about the spoilers apparently, so it's now time to talk about this shit without being as vague as fucking possible. So right off the bat, we're gonna spoil this bitch, right? So at the very beginning, if you didn't know, Michelle, she's kind of in this relationship, whatever. She's kind of getting away from a marriage apparently because you see the wedding ring, or whatever it may be. Now there were a lot of subtleties in there that I really did kind of enjoy, particularly because they muted the conversation, right? They never wanted to, explain her backstory, whatever it may be. Now they showed obviously the ring that she was running away from marriage, and that's kind of a constant thing that she talks about in the movie, where she's always constantly running away from things when things go bad, right? And it all kind of comes to a close at the very end, particularly. Now, she's on the phone with the guy named Ben, right? If you saw my regular review, I was telling you that when she's on the phone with a guy named Ben, that is pretty much Bradley Cooper, right? If you listen very carefully, and it was confirmed, right? That is Bradley Cooper. He's obviously a little bit of an Easter egg or whatever it may be, but he worked with J. John Alias, whatever. So that was kind of a throwback to that, right? Okay, so the next thing we're going to kind of talk about is the first time Michelle and Howard kind of talk with each other. Now, he says that he did crash her car, right? And he kind of already said it was mainly because he was just, distraught or whatever it may be. That's bullshit. But the very first time he tells her that what really happened, it clearly was obvious that she didn't believe him just from the start. And his details did feel a little sketchy to the point where he was just like, so you were driving back and then you kind of ran into her, but that really didn't make any sense. Like his details already kind of seemed a little bit sketchy, and that's the thing about Howard, right? So the connection for Cloverfield and 10 Cloverfield Lane is very vague to the point where you can't even really see it unless maybe you squint. Now Emmett talks about how Howard is pretty much, he did like some Navy SEAL shit or whatever it may be, and he worked with the satellites. Now my theory is, and this could be wrong, this is just a theory, is that this takes place right before Cloverfield, just a little bit, to the point where, if you remember at the end of Cloverfield, they kind of showed the beginning of it where the satellite kind of fell. My guess, Howard actually worked with the place, NASA or whatever, with the satellite, right? He eventually knew that something may or may not be coming, as they kind of say in the movie, and then he eventually kind of starts to go to work on his bunker or whatever it may be. Then we kind of fast forward a little bit, and then this kind of events happen. So my guess is that the events of Cloverfield, which is going on in the first movie, are happening while he's in the bunker, right, where everybody's kind of attacked at the very beginning. Then I think the events after Cloverfield is kind of where Michelle eventually kind of gets out of the bunker, and then she sees all these aliens or whatever. Because personally, I feel like after the Cloverfield, when the monster kind of took over or whatever, my guess is that so much time has kind of passed by, because we never know how long it actually passed by. So my guess, so much time has kind of passed by to the point where the aliens kind of have taken over, because here this is a big war going on, whatever. Now, for Howard personally, it was clearly obvious that Howard is clearly a child molester, right? Because he lies about Megan, particularly. He tells, Michelle that this is Megan. It obviously wasn't Megan. It's actually a real missing girl, as Emmett tells her. And then we realize that Megan was, well, that's the thing. That's the crazy thing about it, is that I don't believe we actually ever see Megan. The girl in the picture with Howard, the one with the actual Paris shirt, I don't think that's Megan either. Because they never really said it. At least I don't think they did. But I don't think that's actually Megan. Why? Because if you look at the picture, Howard's happy. The uncomfortable arm grab is very interesting, to the point where you look at the girl's face and she's very kind of, she looks like she's on edge. She doesn't look like she's very happy, kind of almost being forced. Because it's pretty obvious, at least to me personally, that Howard was a child molester or a child abductor, whatever you want to call it, or he's a little bit of both. Because when he's abducting Michelle and he kills Emmett, he clearly says that he wanted a family. And I think the reason why, if you look at the thing where he's talking about Emmett and Michelle eat up food or whatever, he's trying to take care of them, I believe he's trying to make up for his own loss of his own daughter. Whether he killed her or not, that could be something. But I think he was trying to make it for his own daughter loss, and trying to almost make his own family by bringing them in, personally. Though it was pretty obvious he never really wanted Emmett to begin with, because if you see, once he kills Emmett, he kind of just starts to get all real creepy. He starts shaving, whatever. He starts giving, Michelle some ice cream, and like, now we can be a family, now that we got the problem out the way. So I was just like, okay, so did Emmett come after Michelle, Howard kind of saved Michelle, or whatever you want to call it, and then Emmett kind of ruined the plans? Because he clearly said it before, right? Emmett tried to get in, and that's where his arm kind of got a little bit caught. So therefore, I'm thinking that if he actually did get inside, right, Clearly he must have ruined Howard's plans to kind of, rekindle with his alleged daughter. So my guess is that even though his daughter did leave, right, with her mother or whatever, my guess is he constantly keeps abducting little girls or whatever it may be, to kind of fill that fire of, that's been missing because he doesn't have a daughter anymore, or fill that void pretty much. Because it was pretty obvious. There's a lot of hints that kind of throw that out there, particularly because when he's playing the game, right, where they kind of like read off hints or whatever, Emmett is pretty much saying, little, and, it said tiny, whatever, and then he says, little girl, and he says child, or whatever. He's thinking of all these little creepy things, but he can't come up with a woman, apparently. So it makes me wonder, is like, he clearly was a little bit weird, and, he obviously, I guess, felt a big affection for Michelle, because if you see when Emmett and, Michelle are, like, play flirting or whatever, he kind of has this enraged thing where he's balling up his fist or whatever. By the way, that was a very scary scene where he's kind of like, he just, like, enrages because they're flirting or whatever. If I'm going fast, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of information to kind of get to. But, yeah, I thought that was actually a very interesting thing, because if Emmett did come after, and he kind of ruined his plans to kind of, fill the void with his daughter, that was very interesting to me, because as I said, it is obvious that Howard was like a child molester or a child abductor, and that was kind of like the form of the monster or whatever it may be. Now, for some problems that I did kind of have that I couldn't really say in the first review was the acid thing, and the problem kind of just comes with Howard just in general was that even though the acid does run over him, that really should have just, like, stopped him right there. Now, granted, it burned him on his face, but then it kind of became a little bit comical to me a little bit while watching it, to the point where I was just like, okay, well, that was just kind of stupid. And then he was still alive. And then the next problem is particularly because when he does die, right, he just kind of dies off screen, right? We don't even really get to see him. There's not really much closure. And we see the bunker kind of explode or whatever when she's trying to escape with the hazmat suit and go outside. He just kind of like burns up, and then that's kind of it. We don't ever see him towards like the last 10, 15 minutes or whatever it may be. And then that's just kind of it. To me, that just kind of came a little bit lazy. Like either maybe John Goodman was busy, he couldn't make it or whatever it may be. But, that is what it is. And also the woman, right? So Howard, I don't think was completely lying, because there was clearly some radioactivity in, the area, obviously, because the big spray that the aliens kind of go around, the area kind of like spraying, and Michelle's kind of has a hazmat suit on. So I'm thinking that Howard wasn't completely lying. It's just that he kind of used that as an excuse to abduct another girl. That was my thoughts personally. But at the very end, when she does kind of escape, right, she eventually takes the car, and you realize the car is kind of working, whatever. But the big monster kind of comes, right, and she is grabbed by the monster. And it was a very interesting thing, because Emmett does say at the, kind of like towards the beginning, where he's like, Howard is talking about, you should hear it's like super mutant worm theory or whatever. So I'm guessing that was the worm monster towards the end or whatever it may be. But that was just my thought. And then it just kind of seemed like the monster or whatever that grabbed her and she threw the Molotov at him. It looked like the monster kind of like very carefully placed her down, and then she wasn't even like hurt or whatever. But at the very end, she drives off. She kind of escapes or whatever. The monster kind of blows up, and then she hears on the radio that people in Houston are kind of being, in trouble. There's a war going on or whatever it may be. If you have any training, medical or, combat experience, come to Houston. She looks at the sign, it says Baton Rouge or, Houston, and she's like looking and deciding. But then she goes to Houston and she kind of makes the jump to help these people. And if you understand the ending, it was pretty obvious, because it goes back to what she did at the very beginning. When Emmett and her kind of had this conversation about regrets, right? She talks about how she wished she kind of did something with that little girl and the father, whatever. And she constantly keeps talking about how when things go bad, right, she always tends to run away from the situation. She's doing it with the marriage. She was going to do it here. She was pretty much doing it when she was trying to escape or whatever. But she does it here, and then she kind of gets her character development pretty much, and it kind of grows right here. If you didn't think it was in character development, it really is. Because she eventually grows, and then she realized it's time to stop running and actually go into the danger instead of running away from it. So that's kind of where it ends, and now it seems like it may be a war or whatever. Now, some people are saying, hey, I would like to see a war, but I don't think it would be. Because they were saying that's just going to be kind of like a Twilight Zone or whatever, or what one-shot deal. I kind of want it to be that. Because to me, if it becomes a war, then it becomes nothing more than like some like Independence Day or any one of the 1,000 fucking, alien invasion type movies. just end it here. You know how like every Twilight Zone episode kind of has a very kind of conclusion, but it leads you kind of speculating a theory or what may or may not happen. It's kind of like the first Cloverfield, where it kind of has a satellite be like, well, what happened after that? You know, you kind of speculate, but there was really no sequel to clarify. And I feel like that's the same thing that should happen here. You know, just make you speculate. I feel like that's what adds the best to the ending, pretty much. Did I have a problem with the ending? Not really. I actually did enjoy the ending, but there was a lot of people that kind of was falling asleep in this movie. I don't blame them too much because it isn't what you kind of expected. But if you read the sites or you heard about information, they clearly said this was not supposed to be a direct sequel and kind of something of its own. But yes, that's my spoiler review. I hope you enjoyed it. It's very long, but yes, comment, subscribe, and like. I'm Chris Smith, and I'm signing out.